A very good morning to all. On behalf of ACM India and VNIT, I, Meera Dhabu, welcomes you all to fourth day of ACM Compute 2020 conference. Uh, First event on today's schedule is panel discussion on industry, academia, collaboration, and beyond. It's my pleasure to welcome and introduce Dr. Hemanth Pandey, who accepted our invitation to be moderator for the panel discussion. Dr. Hemanth Pandey, an executive director of ACM India, is an alumni of IIT Bombay. He did his master's as well as PhD from Rutgers University. He has worked as a research scientist at TRDDC during 1991 and 2000. He was at Persistent System during 2000 to 2014 and was senior vice president as well as chief planning officer. I welcome Dr. Hemanth Pandey and request him to take over from here.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much for this kind introduction. Yeah, let's get started. And I wish all of you a very good morning. And I know we have some international attendees also. So for those in the other time zones as appropriate, good evening. Especially I know Raju, one of our panelists, is joined in from Toronto. So it's pretty late over there. So good morning, everybody, and good evening to, as I said, from the people from the other areas. Certain things that I would like to announce about this is that I'm really delighted that we have this eminent representatives from industry, and not just they are representing their industry, so that's what makes it relevant, but each one of them personally has experience with industry, academia, collaboration, and as it will come out. Okay, I'm going to share my screen now, and so that I use some help to make the introductions. Okay, let's see. Is the screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Great. Okay, so here is our session. Thing that we should remember is that most of the other people, panelists, whether they have the rights to speak and video, being panelists and invited guests from other sessions, they as well as our participants mostly are going to be on mute. Unless there is a question follow-up and requires a discussion and things like that, when we will switch on the audio for them. But otherwise on mute, and primarily when we do this session, when we make it interactive after the introduction and so on, use the Q&A window. Okay, so we will pick up your questions from there, and we do expect a lot of question and answer because that's the whole purpose of it. We are going to spend very short duration on one-sided kind of thing. Okay, so hope this is going to be a very interactive session. So let's get on with it right now. I hope everybody, the slide is visible. So here is our panel. Okay, so as you can see, our representatives are from various kinds of industry. Well, all are computing industry, but startup, product companies, large Fortune 500, or Fortune 10 enterprises, and so on. So that's the spectrum that we have from panelists. And also most of them have association with ACM, I'm very happy to say. Okay, so one by one, I'm not going to spend too much time. When I introduce the person, I would like that person to say hello so that we can see their video also and identify the face with the name. Pictures sometimes look better, certainly case with me, but nevertheless, let's see the person's face live also at that time. Okay. So first, Pranali. Hi, Pranali.
Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Yes, you're visible. Great. Good morning to you. So and I'm not going to read out from the slides over here, but I'll just summarize. The slide says all, but when Pranali when we say that she has global experience across cultures and across industry, it means not just IT, but from manufacturing, from construction also. Okay, and when global experience, it means from Nordics region, from Western Europe, from US, India, China, Philippines, Africa. So truly global leader over here. And she's the chief HR officer of at ICERTIS, based out of Pune. Well, actually, we say based out of Pune, but in the current circumstances, the best one to describe is everybody's based out of home right now. So please, everybody, be safe. Okay, so moving on. Her passion is people development, as we will also see soon. Okay, and education-wise, MBA from Wellington Institute of Management and bachelor's from Mumbai University. Glad to have you here, Pranali. Moving on, another Hemanth. We call each other Hemanth Ji, but it's Hemanth Gadgil, and he, just to distinguish, calls me Hemanth Ji, which says the same anyway. But in written thing, it looks different. So Hemanth is again a seasoned leader. He's has been the director position at Dassault Systems, and now he's taken over as the executive director of Dassault Foundation, India. As you can see, CSR is one of his passions, but he comes from a delivery background. And he has a very good network with academia. When I go to academic institutions and so on, you can see that he's well known. I mean, I just found out that Pranali and Hemanth know each other, which I didn't know. Okay, so bachelor's from Walchand College, Sangli, and master's from IIT Madras. Hi, Hemanth.
Hello, good morning.
Good to have you here.
Thank you.
And now we go across the oceans to Raju Goteti from TCS. And again, very personal experience working with academia in his role, because COIN, which is the Co-Innovation Network of TCS, by definition works with academic institutions, apart from startups and customers and even VCs. So he will bring international perspective into the engagements that can happen between industry and academia, because he's right now abroad, works from Canada, from Toronto area. Okay.
Hello,
So,
everyone.
hi, Raju.
So good morning to India, and it's pretty late here, so happy to be this call. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you very much. Coming to Anil. Anil is again has been for almost 2 decades, has demonstrated leadership in network and security products, works for Cisco, handles a business of about $1 billion globally. And he's very active in multiple forums. And I know that Cisco works with ACM, his group works with ACM in summer schools and so on. And he's one of the examples of his social responsibilities is that he is exec sponsor of Connected Disabilities Awareness Network. Education-wise, in master's MBA from US and bachelor's from NIT Calicut. Hi, Anil.
Great hey, good morning, everybody. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Do we have Ashwani by now? Ashwani, are you there?
Yes, I am. Sorry if my late arrival caused any delays. There was some fire alarm going off here, and I had to make sure I didn't need to evacuate.
Well, I'm really glad that you could join us. Yeah, so Ashwani, hi. So as again the slide says, he's head of university relations, not just within India, but again, Southeast Asia, Australia, New Zealand. And earlier it was also included, when you were there, it included the EMEA European region. He's a founder member of Google Research India, and again, handles research operations. So similar role while you were with Microsoft Research India as well. So MBA from IIM Indore and bachelor's from Hansraj College, shares, well, alma mater with Shah Rukh Khan. Hi, so Ashwani, welcome.
Thank you.
And finally, Samir. I put Samir last because in some sense, he can claim to be host because he's based in Nagpur. And Nagpur chapter, VNIT, is organizing this, hosting this conference. So welcome, Samir. Samir does a number of things. It's always amazing how he manages to do these things together. Not so many people would know that apart from doing this, being a chief people officer of persistent systems, Samir, what's this? You run a electric motor manufacturing company still, Samir, right?
No, used to. I think I just sort of gave it a year back. Until a year back, I was doing that too.
I see. Okay, great. But that's his background, electronics, bachelor's from electronics, and he has handled multiple roles at Persistent Systems as well, and very active socially, ex-president of Rotary Club in Nagpur, and works with startups, chairman of TiCon in Nagpur, and so on. And also, of course, perhaps the black and white photograph suggests that he has passion in photography. And hope you got some good wildlife picture from Pachmadi, Samir, from your recent visit. So welcome, Samir.
So good morning and a pleasure to be here.
So there we are. That's our panel. So I will stop sharing now so that we can see our pictures, faces better and get into the conversation. So what I would like to do now is give opportunity to each one of the panelists to just speak briefly what we can call a position statement. Okay. If you have slides, let me know, or you would have to do a screen share yourself. So I'll call one by one. We'll go in the same sequence perhaps. Okay. Do keep it to 2 to 3 minutes. And we would love to hear your views on this topic. Okay, so I would invite Pranali first.
All right. Good morning again, everybody. I think this is a fantastic moment for education industry as such, and in particular, the whole transformation in the space of education has started already, with the VUCA world and pre-pandemic. But the pandemic has accelerated whatever developments had started, and is also pushing innovation, disruptive thinking in a big way in this space. So more and more, I think, how can we make the collaboration in a way that we stay learning agile, both from a student perspective as well as from an industry perspective, becomes one of the key issues that we are looking at. And I think the second, I really think that 2021 is going to completely transform this space in the way industry has been looking at, the traditional ways of education, in traditional ways of hiring talent also from, college degrees, etc. So Google, for example, we have our friends here on the panel there, and I'm sure they'll speak more to it, but is changing, looking at certifications and rather than traditional degrees. There are many other good larger enterprises that are looking at having their own university, and the ask from industry is for more customized, smaller, and relevant, I would say, bites of education and skills that can be imparted, as opposed to a long 3-year, 4-year course that students kind of look in a theoretical angle. So I think the space is really developing. It is mature for a lot more. And I think this is a good time that we are having this discussion in what do we need on both sides to enable this, and to make sure that we can, get a little more momentum into this entire effort. So I would pick maybe early collaboration as one of the themes. Second, I would pick customizing relevant courses as another. And third is, I think, how do we keep the traditional university education relevant in today's time in industry? So that would be my third pick here. I'll stop in the interest of time.
Thank you. And yeah, I think we'll get to hear views of you as well as others as we go along. Next, I would invite Hemanth Gadgil to express his views about industry academia collaboration, something he personally has been doing.
Good morning.
Hi.
And good morning. Thank you again for this wonderful session and the opportunity. And as Pranali said, it's a right time we relook at the entire spectrum of industry and academia collaboration, because the way things have been happening before and the way the things will happen in the future are dramatically going to change. However, at the same time, the basic fundamental concerns or the challenges both industry and academia is experiencing, is being vocal over last so many years, is how do we ensure that there is a very tight integration of industry and academia to prepare the workforce of the future, because industry do have requirement of fresh talents. We have a lot of education institutes. When I speak about India, almost 3,500 plus engineering colleges, and I'm sure many more into the other streams as well. Now, at one side, the talent is going through the programs, and when they complete their graduation, when they complete their post graduation, they are facing a challenge of employability. They are facing a challenge of their career, and with the change of technologies, with the pandemic coming in, there is a huge question mark that what is going to happen for my future. What I did now, is it going to be relevant in the coming few years or no? Because everybody is talking that the skills needed 10 years down the line, we don't know. And in this situation, what kind of education, what I have done, how it is going to be relevant. My slides could be presented. I would quickly touch upon the program which Dassault System Foundation has launched, because we realize that the challenge of spotting the talent which is faced by the industry and the employability opportunity as a challenge which is seen by the students and the academic institutes can be addressed very well by empowering students to be future ready. And what we believe is that a very vibrant ecosystem of both industry coming forward, academia coming forward to make this transformation happen. And with that perspective, we have launched this program, ConnectNext. And if we move to the next slide, please. What we have done is it's a 6-faceted program launched with a lot of research, interacting with the industry experts, interacting with the academic, the vice chancellors, deans, and principals. And what we realize that one of the ways to address this is making the entire projects framework a very robust one, a very relevant one. And in that perspective, we launched this 6-faceted program where we are building the projects library as a projects definition coming from the industry, so that the students get to work on the real life problem, the industry oriented problems. At the same time, the students need a mentoring from the industry experts. Whatever mentoring they receive from the academic institutes may be more on the theory side, but more on the practical side, what industry would do. That mentoring we want to build. And then, of course, the internship program will expose students to the industry environment. And ultimately, what we have done is we have built a platform which provides a space and the opportunity for students to showcase their project work, and at the same time industry to come and see all the projects which are done by the students. Very first such conference we did in September, where we selected 100 top innovative projects from Indian engineering schools and then presented to the industry. So that's a kind of a program we have launched, and our entire effort is to bring industry into this process, because they are the one, and if they bring in their requirement, bring in their knowledge and mentoring, and accordingly help students to develop, that would be the good thing to happen for the entire ecosystem. So with that brief, I stop, and then we can explore this topic further during the discussions.
Yes, thank you, Hemanth. Yep, moving on to Raju, over to you for your thoughts.
Yeah, thanks. I think this is such a relevant topic today. It is time for reimagination of the industry academic networks. Because of COVID, it is poised for really renewing. How do we want to think about this network? What are the kind of strengths in this network? What are the kind of weaknesses in the network? Given the disruption, pretty much all the universities have suddenly become global, because nobody is going to physical classes, very, very few here and there. And therefore, it is pretty okay to do a class that is coming out of one of the IITs in India to do it in Germany, or a class coming out of Cornell Tech, doing it in Japan. It does not matter anymore. Those programs which have already have had as a part of their design, they have considered online as a part of the design. They obviously have a leading edge. If you see how Clayton Christensen, one of the gurus in disruptive innovation, he wrote a book on innovative university, and what he says is that 10 years back, he wrote this book, that half the universities in the US will disappear because of online being a disruptor. And what online would actually do is bring down the cost so much that that it'll be difficult for half the universities to even figure out how they'll fund themselves, because they rely so much on students. So the disruption has made, as I was saying, universities have suddenly become global. Universities are looking at micro credentials. Universities are looking at trying to re-evaluate their value that they are offering for the students. They're looking at how do they monetize their IP. They're looking at what technologies do they have, and are they ready to be ready for the future. Similarly, from the acad side, the demand is on the universities is, how ready are universities to pick up jobs as they graduate, because they are seeing the movement towards the digital disruption happening, and so they need these skills like today. They are looking at how can students be trained much before they actually graduate, through things like internships, capstone projects. We do hackathons in different universities around the world. Right now, we're having a hackathon called Code Beta going on, and we do early hiring and so on and so forth. So that's on the student side. On the faculty side, what are we are always wanting to make sure, as a result of the co-innovation network, which we have designed as an open network, and just the way Henry Chesbrough has said it about 10-15 years back, designed to keep it open. So it should be very easy for us to really interact with the top universities of the world and embrace disruption from outside in, as much as we always try to do our own innovation from inside the company. So both are going to be equally important. And just one liner on the co-innovation network is we have partnering with about 100+ universities around the world. Many of the top 100 universities are our partners. And we are engaging in multiple kind of engagement models. And the idea is to see in what we can discover, sometimes together, sometimes it is through investment, sometimes it is through publication of papers, and there are various models that we do this. So there is pressure from the industry side, there is reimagining from the university side, and these two things are going to meet in a certain way. And I think it's a very exciting time to be really discussing this topic. Looking forward to talk more about it.
Thank you. Thank you, Raju. Yeah, we look forward to hearing more about these engagements through the question answers. Yeah. All right. Let me invite Anil now to share his thoughts to start with.
Thank you, Hemanth. Thank you, ACM. Raju, I think I absolutely relate to what you just said. We've been talking about a lot of industry verticals going through material disruption, and education as a sector is ripe for a fundamental disruption on how that sector works. And I mean, the pandemic is going to just accelerate that disruption. So how we look at universities, how we look at education, how we look at talent building 5 years from now is going to be fundamentally different from how we look at things today. So we'll see how that goes. It's exciting. But when you think about the industry academia interlock, so this notion of a triple helix in a model of innovation that brings together industry, academics, and the government, and how they all come together, the interplays between them, and how that drives fundamental transformation of the industry and the country at large. And we have seen that happening in the US, going back probably the last 50, 60 years, coming from the space era and the competition from the Cold War. But more recently, which we probably haven't talked a lot, but what happened in China, I mean, I would not recommend that we follow what they do, because the framework and fundamentals of ethics, structures, and rights and all are very different. But they have fundamentally changed that dynamics, specifically in the direction of AI and ML. And that has and just everything else that we talk about from China's standpoint, they execute at scale. But when you think about India as to where things are today, one leg which is fairly mature is how industry looks at the academia as a source of talent. How do you bring in the right set of people, and how do you work together closely to always fine tune and get things at a better level? And I think over the last 20 years in India, we have maybe 30 years, we've come a long way. And I would say it's a fairly mature thing, but it's constantly changing. And as we talked about how the disruption is likely to happen in the education sector, that's likely to change drastically. So from a Cisco standpoint, I lead the university relations in certain ways from engineering standpoint. And one of the things we look at when you hire from the colleges is not just to kind of bring in talent to come in and do the work for us, but we do look at them as disruptors, internal disruptors. We expect them to come in and disrupt what we do, disrupt how we think. So the expectation is thought leadership. It's not just come in and code something, come in and implement something. So this is how we fundamentally look at ourselves and say, this is how we're going to be catching up to what's happening around the world, the generations, and how they start thinking about problems and so on and so forth. So, it's not very easy. I mean, there are probably the top tier schools who have that level of thought process, but scaling that at the next level is still a challenge. But we're happy to see that most of the universities are open to engagements, be willing to relook at the curriculum. And it's very important that, I mean, the fundamental element that will impact this is the professors, the teachers. They have to relook at their role. It's not teaching, but enabling experiential learning, enabling peer learning. And that's a fundamental shift, and that's a mind frame change that they had to bring in. But the other leg outside of the talent thing is how does the industry contribute back to the academia to the nation building, as well as bring out problems that need scale solutions. And that's, I would say, we are still in the early days of that journey. Elements that we promote recently, like the Smart India Hackathon, is giving forums to think about problems at scale. But one beautiful thing right now in these days is that innovation is a lot more easier. You don't have to build up a large lab. You don't have to think about fundamental research. It's so easy with cloud and evolution in technologies to kind of bring in innovation in a very distributed and probably almost like a democratic fashion. And it's more about identifying the right problems. And I think that's where the industry and the academia have to come together. And we are in the early stages, but I think that's probably where I would like to see a real shift in the coming years.
Thank you, Anil. Let's hear views from Ashwani personally, as well as from his Google experience. Over to you, Ashwani.
Sure. So I'll comment from two perspectives. One is being in research and having been with two very prominent computer science industrial research labs for most part of my career. And the second one would be in general about education and the role of industry. So on the point of research, I think with the current times of the importance of machine learning, there has been a very interesting situation that a lot of the resources which are required to do good machine learning research are actually in the hands of industry today. And with that, I mean the computational capabilities, some of the data sets that the industry has access to because of products at scale, and so on. And therefore, the point about universities and industry coming together becomes very, very important, because scientific advances would be difficult without it. So university has lots and lots of students and professors, and they are exploring new ideas. They would like to do new things, conduct experiments, but the resources to conduct those experiments are a lot of times in the hands of industry. So the more those methods could happen, mechanisms could be built to bring these two parties together, I think it's going to be very beneficial. And from personal experience, I can say I was leading university relations in Google Research for almost like east of North and South America. I was like east of the prime meridian, I was leading the whole region. And last year's ICML Best Paper Award came in because of something that I set up, where Google researchers in Zurich worked with ETH Zurich professor and PhD student and another professor at the Max Planck Institute in Germany. And so the paper has authors from all these three different organizations, and they could work together. This year's Best Paper Award in Constraints on Learning Theory, COLT, also came from one such collaboration where the key researcher was Google researcher was in Zurich. There was a postdoc in Princeton and another postdoc in Technion in Israel. And you can just see the kind of breadth of collaboration that would come in by that kind of arrangement. So I can comment further on how those mechanisms can be set up, but I'd leave it at that yes, it's possible. And yes, it should be done, because that's the only way to get significant scientific advancements. On the point of education, from some of the comments I've heard, it seems to give the impression that university education is less relevant or irrelevant to industry. And I would like to say strongly that that is not the case. And I would like to put this point forward that also, what do we think as the job of a university is? And a job of the university, in my view, is not to primarily put out industry-ready professionals. It is to prepare people for a lifetime. And so maybe, in my view, creating aware citizens who can participate in the society is probably the most important job of a university education. And if you're talking about specific skills and things, then a lot of times that actually, for me, goes into vocational category. And one point to note over there is, some of the education systems around the world actually promote a liberal education, where students are actually made to study a variety of subjects, including things like literature and philosophy and psychology and all these things, which actually develops a very variety of breadth of critical thinking that being only in a scientific stream or just in an engineering stream or a management stream or whatever. I mean, we have universities of agriculture today. what does that even mean? A university is supposed to have that well-rounded scope for people. So I think my view in this is we need to see where things could be different and bring voices together to bring that kind of mission to fore, which probably is getting lost.
Thank you.
So yeah, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Ashwani. And now, finally, love to hear from you, Samir. Your thoughts.
Thank you, Hemanth. Good morning, everybody, and it's really a pleasure to be here for this ACM session. And thank you for Hemanth for also calling me a co-host, because the Nagpur chapter of ACM, which is hosting this program, and have been very closely involved with all the teams which have been working very hard for not only this program, but the whole ACM chapter at Nagpur. Sometimes it's difficult when you are the last person to make comments, because some of your comments have been covered by somebody and then you want to add to that rather than saying that. So let me—
You have the last word, Samir.
No, I do. I hope so, not. I think there are a lot of other much more intellectual people whom I would like to hear from rather than my word being the last word. So let me just put a couple of different points together before I talk about what Persistent does and how Persistent has been looking at this, I think, more from a personal perspective. I think one thing which I really agree with Raju and Anil, which saying that the university, I believe, in its current form and state, very soon maybe, or industry institute in the current form or state will cease to exist over a period. There will be a big disruption in the way whole the skill development, education, and this thing is imparted. I think the change about this happened many years ago. I'm sure all of you would remember when we were doing our engineering, we were sort of expected to read from a book or which was available to us. You had to struggle to get that book, and only on that book all your education, your questions would really come from, because that was what was available to you. From that, today, the avalanche of knowledge which is available, avalanche of data which is available, the whole learning systems have been disrupted. Yes, it was accelerated during the COVID times, but I think the disruption was already there. Disruption was already taking place. Today, so as institutes, what is their role? What are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to sort of just teach them what is available there, or actually develop people for the future who can really be ready to contribute not just to the organization, but to the whole society in large? And I agree with what Ashwani said. In fact, if you look at the data, the number of global laureates come on from Cambridge are more than anywhere else, is because they really promote blended learning, whether it is learning liberal arts, history, and physics, and all coming together, and economics coming together. So I think that's where the education system is really heading towards overall. But if when you talk about a little more closer to the topic which we're talking about, the industry institute there. See, the industry is ultimately a consumer of the output which comes out from the institutes. So as a consumer of an output in a supply chain industry, in an industry where I consume, if I am a manufacturer and I'm looking at this person, institute as a supplier of my raw material or some input to my manufacturing unit, where do I have to invest time on? Yes, I have to look at the quality of the input coming, look at the right type of input am I getting so that my product which I give to the world is good. But I need to invest a lot of time and the right investment with doing that. Is the manufacturing facility or my vendor facility, my supplier facility top class? So how much time am I investing, not just in the students, but in the institutes itself? Am I working to developing the institutes? And when we talk about developing institutes, come on, how much am I investing in developing the faculties in the institute, which will give me the output, which I will use for my industry? I think that is one area which, while we all talk about it in a little bit senior there, but that's an area which, especially in countries like India, is not being leveraged as much as we should. We do not have enough organizations really sponsoring chairs in the institutes where people will work and spend time on the institute campus and have that institute interactions to the level which we want to do. Yes, organizations do this. Persistent also does some of these things by encouraging actually running programs for faculties, developing faculties. But I think we have miles to go before we really can look at really impacting the whole industry in that way. I believe there are, of course, there are other things which the institutes also can do to look at how they can really take more inputs from us rather than just having us more institutes as part of the mostly training placements or the academic councils and the sort of finalizing on the syllabuses. The larger interactions is what we should look at doing as an industry and institutes coming together. As Persistent, of course, we have been doing sort of very, very closely associated with institutes, whether it is the IIT Mumbai or IIT Bombay, IIT Kharagpur, or the institutes in Nagpur. VNIT, of course, we have a phenomenal relationship. In fact, a lot of our employees here at Persistent actually teach there and really impart education to the students which are coming there. So we have a lot of different, of course, apart from that, the sort of quote unquote standard methodologies of trainings, internships, and all these are sort of done there. But I think we can look at taking this to the next level where we can really impact not only the students, but the global at large. I think I'll stop here with my views and then maybe look at the question and answers, other sessions to elaborate on some of the points which I've spoken about.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much, Samir. And thank you everybody for your views to kick off this this discussion. One announcement I have is that that we welcome questions coming in now. We will take a round of questions that we have just to start off certain discussion and certain things that we would like to discuss first. But the time is now to, at least for the audience, for all our participants, to put their questions in, I believe, in the Q&A window. But Viraj was telling me that it's not possible to put questions in the Q&A window. Is that right? So if we can take a look at that, but if not, then put your question in the chat window. So look forward to your questions coming in and we'll take them up one by one. All right. So as I said, to start with, we have some questions and let's do just a round robin. I'll address one question to a couple of our participants and let's make the answers fairly quick as far as possible because we do want to get questions from the audience. So first question, and I'll address it to Pranali, is that Pranali, look, given the advances in technology and in getting better healthcare, the lifespan is increasing, the active lifespan. So today's students, you can expect them to be active professionally for another, 60 years. So presumably education and on-job training should have a very long-term relevance and resilience. So this could be a good opportunity for industry academia collaboration. What would you think? And I thank also Anand Deshpande, my friend and colleague from Persistent, to kind of have start off these kind of questions when I was talking to him. Then Venkatesh Raman, he posed certain questions. So I'll include those in our startup discussion. So Pranali, would you like to comment on this?
Yes, indeed. I think, lifespans are increasing as well as the professional lifespan is also increasing. People continues, since they have healthy, not just longer, but healthy lives, they are also wanting to put that to creative use for a longer span of time. And I think that is where maybe, focus should be even more on building some kind of learning agility. So, one can't really prepare, I think, at the university level to face everything that's going to come up or every change that's going to come up. The pace of change is too fast. Second, things are really, really unpredictable. And I think what you can prepare for is life skills. So resilience, learning agility, rather than focusing on what to learn, I think the focus should be more moving towards how to learn. because information is available out there today. You no longer have to carry it in your mind like you had to, whatever, 20, 30 years ago. So that piece, I think, is something which needs to happen. And from an industry perspective also, I will say it's less about prescriptive learnings and modules which are given out, to more about studying the methods, studying how to conduct yourself in ambiguous situations, etc. Those kind of soft skills approach, I think the focus also is moving towards those, and these will prepare people to be employable, and also be able to contribute for a longer time period. That's my short view.
Thank you. Perhaps Hemant, you also would like to comment on this, the longevity of skills in collaboration
Yes,
with.
yes. So in the way the things are changing, the technologies which are coming up, the technology change which is happening, it's no longer learning which will happen during my school days or education years up to 20, 25 years. But it's more, I think, more relevant and pertinent that how as a uh, uh, either as an employee or an entrepreneur, I keep on learning and adopting to the new technologies, because that is where the agility of the industry, agility of the organization, and being relevant for the future will come in. And of course, that is giving a need for a lifelong learning, and that's what is needed. And what the way it could help is really during our education system. It's not just about which topics and technologies the students have learned, but probably it's about how their entire mindset is getting developed, how their ability to learn and relearn is getting shaped up. And many times what we learned a few years back, I will have to quickly discover and get into a new domain, new topic. So being agile, being ready to learn new things, and as Pranali said, what is also relevant is how I am going to learn, because as once we enter into the profession, it's more about how I acquire that knowledge without really going to the education institutes or these things. That is going to be the future, and that is where everyone need to be a lifelong learner, and industries are putting up their efforts for facilitating this, and there are a lot of avenues through the technology are available to equip even the professionals to learn and acquire new skills.
Thanks, Hemant. Another question. Now, this came about when I was talking to Venkatesh. So, industry, as we know, influences the curriculum often, and also influences student behavior a lot, and through offers, and especially early offers. Now, what we do find often is that students lose interest in final year courses then. Okay. Any idea how this can be addressed? And let me, if it's okay, Raju, if I can direct this question to you, would you like to take that?
Sure. So in the final year, let's say of a bachelor's degree program, I think students have gone through quite a bit. They know what it is, probably have a job in hand, maybe reflecting, so what have I learned in the process, and am I ready for the job? And so looking at just these two questions, okay, what have I learned? And what is the job that I'm going to be going into? How ready I am for that, right? My own reflection when I did my bachelor's in IIT Delhi many, many years back, right? My favorite course was actually appreciation of modern art while I was doing a BTech in mechanical engineering.
Mm.
Okay. So that is how this question is. Okay, so what have we learned, and what is learning? Okay, and is it a factory model of how we have shaped up our education in, from our schooling? There is a very set pattern, and where is the creativity? Is it getting killed in the process? Where is it going? That is the question here. And therefore, after a bachelor's, what does different individuals want to do? Do they want to do? Some people want to do MBA. No, this bachelor's was not the kind of a degree I wanted. I actually want to do something else. They will pivot. Some people say, yeah, I really enjoyed my program and I want to stick to it, and therefore I will continue to be, let's say, a mechanical engineer. Or somebody else will say that I want to be a researcher. I love research. This is really the way I want. So it is kind of a pivoting point at the end, at the fourth year of a bachelor's degree. And the question really to ask at the very core is, where has creativity gone in this whole process? Because when we go to work, that is really the most valuable thing, right? How can we be creative? How can we be social? Even, as a society, do we accept something which is, you know, uh, let's say, a degree which is in some topic, non-engineering, non-medical, non-computer science, non-commerce, and will the industry absorb such a person? Because student has studied with a lot of passion and did a bachelor's in, say, English literature or something really like that. What is the space for them? And now with the coming online programs, you do a micro master's program on an edX platform, or some ION platform of TCS do a micro program, different kinds of program. Will that be sufficient to attract into a kind of a job? But again, my core question is about, where has the creativity gone? The second part is on the job itself, right? So once a person, let's say, is going towards a job, then it is about, is the person kind of ready for a job? And we don't really want a factory model when out there, because it's easy to train people as long as the person is willing to learn. So again, I just want to leave it here by saying that the ability to learn, willingness to learn at that point of time is probably the most important thing one has to reflect and see, what makes sense. Does it make sense to pivot, or does it make sense to carry on with the passion one has invested in?
Thanks, Raju. Samir, I know you have views on this one also. So you want to go make a quick comment on it, on this question?
So a couple of quick comments. See, I think, yes, we can talk about the whole education system at large and this thing, but really wanted to bring down it a little more to the engineering stream, and then maybe to the computer stream. See, one of the problems which I have been seeing when you look at the whole education system and the way the industry looks at it, one is wanting these people coming into the industry early, the early offers really killing the whole need. Do we need to go back and to look at that before creating a computer science engineer or mechanical engineer? I need to create an engineer itself. And he has to be first a good engineer, and then look at being a specialized to be in one of whatever the branches he look at. Maybe we need to look at what happens in the field of medicine, where you have first an MBBS doctor, where you have understood the whole medicine as a subject, and then you become an ophthalmologist or a cardiologist. So I think, should our industry look at, and the education system really be disrupted to the level when you look at this? And when you look at this sort of changing the length or scope of even the education system, introducing much more hands-on, because that's going to be a part of the whole system. And that's where the industry really comes in, inside, saying that I will provide this hands-on learning, and not with the intention saying that I'm getting two people early getting into this thing, and sort of to some extent blaming, saying that the education system does not make people industry ready. Why should we expect that the education system should just make people industry ready? They should make them sort of more developed, having the learning skills so that they are relevant not only for today, but for the futures which will come to? Do they have the right modern temperament? When I say modern, I don't mean contemporary, I mean the temperament which is in having an engineering thought process. Do they have the right RCA mentality inside the students, and they are developed so that they will not only remain relevant for tomorrow, they will be able to have the agility to adapt to the changes which we are doing. I'm sure all of us remember when we were doing our engineering, the languages which we learned, the technologies which we learned have changed at a phenomenal speed. And especially when you look at the computer science and the computing world, we say that the half-life of every language today which you learn or if technologies run is something like just 18 months or 15 months, because things would have changed. Whatever you're learning today will not. So you need to inculcate the need of learning, ability to adapt to new things, ability to the change, especially given the fact, like we spoke about earlier, Pranali also spoke about, that the longevity is going to be there. People are going to be in the industry, employable, able to work for a much longer period of their time. Why not invest a little more of the individual's time in actually educating himself, developing himself as a training, whether just not just life skills, but the overall development of a person, rather than getting in a hurry to get him into the industry where he only becomes a specialist in a narrow area and the broad basing does not happen. So that's a sort of a challenge which I wanted to throw up and saying that, can we look at, should we think of disrupting some of these things? And that is where the industry needs to come together with institutes saying that, hey, we will support you in these disruptions and maybe pilot it at some places. We are ready to take these challenges. Why not we look at changing the way the whole engineering education is looked at in a country like India?
Thanks, Samir.
Can I make some comments?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you. Specific to that particular question, I think there is just lots and lots of aspects to the placements and the final year loss of interest and things like that. One thing definitely I agree with some of the colleagues here who've spoken that we should try to use that final year as much as possible, because that's actually one of those occasions when the student actually has some choice and can branch off into either a project-based curriculum or elective courses, choose what they want to do and things and so on. And to that effect, a lot of things have to come together. One of the big things is the amount of attention that goes around on jobs and salaries and placements and percentages and how it counts towards rankings and just the general, big, huge attention on that particular aspect, I think causes it to become a huge concern for both students and parents and for institutions. How could we, moderate it in some way so that it's in reasonable terms. It's not like, considered as the be all end all of college existence. Second thing is, since all the top institutions in the country do their placements on 1st of December, it kind of pushes the next level institutions to think about how can they get ahead in the game, and then they start to work backwards from that particular date, and then you suddenly have placement starting as far back as June or July of the final year. Is there a way that universities and institutions and industry could come together and say, we will try to defer it as late as possible in the academic year, so that one, that pressure is reduced on students, and second, final year studies get their due attention. I understand it's complex because then you also probably postpone the anxiety. You probably also create further uncertainty, and then every student will try to enroll in a master's program, in an MBA, apply for PhD, while waiting for getting a job maybe after graduating or after their final exams in May or June. But timing is an important thing. And the third is, some of the institutions, I know several IITs have done this, which is, look, if you thought getting a job was your be-all for your college existence, and if the institution had got you to that, then we would like to only deal with the ones who are interested. And so making final year projects as optional, some of them have even made class attendance as optional, because we don't want to force you to do things that you don't want to do. And, you're a mature adult, 21 years of age, we can, let you exercise that choice. And then the faculty is quite happy because the ones they get are the ones that are motivated and interested. But none of that is a solution in itself, but some ideas I thought I'd share.
Thanks, Ashwani.
Hemanth, maybe
yeah,
I would like to add a little perspective. See, the way we are also addressing this concern, which is there in the academic institutes, that after the when the students are in the final year, if they have got the job offer, their attention in the education goes down. I look at it very differently, and Raju also touched upon this, that it gives a lot of stability to the students. Instead of looking it as a challenge, we look at it as a positive way, and it gives a stability to student. It reduces the anxiety of the student. And in today's pandemic situation, when everybody is worried that what is going to happen, that's a positive thing to happen, at least in this year. And we can use this time very constructively. We engage with the students whom we have selected. We discuss with them what is the kind of a career job role they would have in our company, how they should prepare themselves, what are the other areas they want to develop during this 1 year. And we also insist that your attendance and you completing the entire curriculum or whatever is the institute is expecting you to do would be mandatory. And if we find it's not been met, probably it will be a question mark for the student joining. So I'm looking at it as a positive thing, and not looking at as a real challenge. It can be handled in this way as well.
Thanks, Hemanth. Just a quick question, comment from Anil, I would like to get on this idea about joint student professional classes, Anil. So, for example, course on cybersecurity, okay, attended by students as well as professionals, say from a car manufacturing company or network security company like Cisco. So that could be an enriching experience for both the students as well as the professionals as well as the faculty. Do you think that's feasible? What are the challenge, pros and cons of that, such an idea?
Sure, Hemant. Before answering that, let me touch upon the concept of industry readiness as we tend to look at. Just want to share my perspective on that and then tie it to the question that you asked. So we tend to show in the concept of industry readiness as specific skills that you need to use the first day in the industry. And I think that's a very wrong notion of industry readiness. And this is something that Ashwani was also touching upon. When I think about industry readiness, it's more about the ability to learn, the self-confidence, focusing on problems than on solutions, knowing yourself better, having an introspective mindset, figuring out what you are good at, what you're not good at, figuring out what motivates you, and so on and so forth. And once you have those meta elements in play, you can solve almost any problem. You can go into any area and learn whatever you want to, but you need to know what you want to be doing and those kind of things. And in my mind, that is what I mean as industry readiness. And it also goes back to what is really education. The thoughts around the multidisciplinary elements of that, and so on and so forth. So I think I just want to make sure that we're not talking about pure vocational or skill focused learning as what we call as the industrial readiness, being able to articulate and all those kind of things. And from that perspective, touching back to your question, Hemanth, on what about joint courses and what about how you bring in industry and academia together in some of these things? Absolutely, there are lots of strengths in that. And I think the biggest learning that the students will get out of that is that focusing on the problem statement better and having a view and a perspective on problems are much more gray and open than what the teachers lay out to you in a Q&A environment, in a test environment, and so on and so forth, which are very, very defined. In real world, none of these problems are well defined. And so it is up to you to kind of start eking out some of these gray areas and translating that to more crisp thought process in your mind. So there's going to be a lot of learning from a student standpoint by having people from the industry sit together with you and look at the problems in a different perspective. And similarly for the academy, I mean, for the industry people, being able to leverage and understand the advancements in terms of technologies and learning process and tricks of the trade, so to speak, that's happening. I mean, the way I look at our life in general is it's a constant repetition of unlearning and relearning. So it's not that we learn something that we apply for the rest of the life. I mean, just look at the last 9 months in pandemic. We pretty much unlearned everything we knew about how we go about doing things, how we go about innovating, how we go about getting something done, and as well as how we go about learning, and then kind of relearning how we do that. And this is a phase that will continuously apply. And this will probably give an opportunity for the people from the industry to unlearn certain things and relearn and expect the students to disrupt the thinking of the people who are established in the industry as well. So especially in areas like cybersecurity, I think there's a good symbiotic relationship between these two areas, and there can be lots of win-wins. Obviously, you need to deal with this, I mean, with an open mind. The traditional ways of running a class will not work, but I think that's a great opportunity and a very, very interesting thought.
Great, thanks, Anil. So next question from Vijay Raisingani, and I'll address this question to whom can I pick? Okay, Pranali. Okay, Pranali, Vijay asks, are there any thoughts about industry collaboration with academia for delivery process and evaluation process changes, other than only the content changes? So content change only may not be the factor, but the delivery process and evaluation process change. And let's at least get one question each from our participants. So we have about 20-25 minutes. So quick answers if possible. Yeah.
Perfect. So first of all, I think that's a fantastic question. And indeed, the collaboration needs to be holistic. It can't just be about content creation, but looking at methods of evaluation. And I'll take it a step further to different ways of collaborating through the process. I think all the three need to come together, and that is what will also give confidence to the industry that the talent that is coming out of the university has met a certain kind of a uniform criteria. Particularly in this year, I think this year is a special year where there are so many questions, because I think every college is kind of modifying criteria, etc. So these are good examples and good ways where how do you really evaluate, and not just what is the course that is created. And very often there's a curated course around the specific topic. So we really need to go beyond that. And I think this is also this is a step that academia needs to take forward in opening up a participatory process in this with industry. Industry will be more than happy to collaborate, I'm sure.
Thank you. Next question, and I'll throw this question to Ashwani, because UAD, Professor Deshpande, has specifically said question for Ashwani. So how does Google Research select academic institutions to have access to computational and data resources to carry out research?
Yes, happy to answer that. So one is a general answer, which is there are computational credits and data sets that are released publicly, or a credits program where professors can apply and put in a short project description, and they get awarded with cloud platform credits to conduct their research. But I think the question here is probably more specific to working more closely with Google Research and having access to things which are either at a higher magnitude or are not publicly available. And in that case, there is no, as such, I can't do this because I do not know the specifics of research projects. I'm not a technical expert in any specific area. And similarly, company-wide, we have this kind of a policy that collaboration, to use an American term, is basically contact sport. And that means that a Google researcher and a university professor need to be interested in exploring a common problem area. And once they come to me, either a Google researcher or professor, and say, we would like to explore this particular direction, tell us how we proceed with it. Then I can figure out what does it mean to get people access to the resources? Can we host a student? Can we host a professor? What sort of IP regime do we need to have? Does university need to own the IP? How are we going to publish it? What is the governance of it? And we have set frameworks to do this. And that's how the examples I shared actually came into practice. But the first step of getting connected and exploring the right problems is generally done by exploring each other's publications, meeting in conferences. Virtual conferences actually make it easier to get to know other people's work, and deciding on a common area where you would want to put your energy. So I kind of say that it is researcher-led. If a researcher comes to me and says, I figure out the way to do it.
Okay, thanks. Here is a question from Viraj, and that's a question for Raju Goteti. MOOCs were supposed to massively disrupt education, but not a lot has changed. What's the difference about this pandemic triggered move to online education that will make a difference?
A great question. So in fact, when I started, I was talking about Clayton Christensen. In fact, he was talking about the online education that's what is going to be creating the disruption. And for all those universities which have been ready with online, okay, they have been the kind of winners in this whole game. MOOC started pretty much in the almost like more than 10 years back, and there was a peer-to-peer networking platform at MIT. And if you see, what came out of MOOCs, the first platform, P2P learning, all you require is an instructional practice, student engagement, and peer-to-peer learning, along with the technology platform to enable all this to happen. MOOCs has been coming out in various forms, okay, and we have got edX, Udemy, Coursera, TCS has got Ion. So many platforms are already there. And I think these platforms are going to be there for sure. Universities are going to pick them up, and there will be a lot more orientation to online learning along with in-class learning. The mechanism of teaching for universities is going to change, and there is going to be this lifelong learning concept also, for which MOOCs is going to be a huge kind of component to do this whole thing. So since the question is about MOOCs, and it is going to, as I said, it's going to stay here, we'll have to come out of this kind of, sometimes we get trapped into thinking about, how we think about the way we perceive education. It is a constant learning, and one can take breaks in education. Even the new India education policy is allowing that. The new India education policy is allowing online education also to be a part and parcel of university education in India. If you see, let's say in the Western world, in North America, students actually take breaks, and they don't think about doing a 4-year straight. They may take a break to do maybe a startup company. They may take a break maybe to kind of travel around the world. They may take a break to do something else. So it is a normal thing. They'll take a break to work so that they can fund their education for the next year. They may work part-time along with taking courses. There are a number of permutations, combinations here. It is the mindset of saying that one is going to work continuously is kind of gone. And people are going to learn later on also. So again, MOOCs is going to play a huge role in all kinds of new models that are going to be coming up. And I think it is definitely EdTech platform world that's going to be there. There's one more point in that EdTech world, which is the upskilling, which is always required. So when I talk about upskilling, it is, even for those, let us say, who has got a PhD degree in, say, cybersecurity, okay. what the PhD degree in cybersecurity was 10 years back, probably that particular student or who's working in, let's say, one of the top companies in the world wants to refresh his thing about what is the latest research going on. Can I attend some kind of a program by which I can do something futuristic? So there is learning even happening there. Um, and some of even MIT, for example, who really started on this MOOCs thing. Harvard also started off pretty early in the 80 in about 20 years back itself. Um, they are all betting on this online platform as a way to be able to deliver. The edX platform that came out of MIT is actually a spin-off. And while the MIT structures are all department-wise, the edtech platform like edX suddenly started offering micro programs and micro masters programs. Some of the micro masters programs don't even require a bachelor's degree. So they went about disrupting the industry, their own industry, MIT itself, and said that, look, why is it not possible to for anybody to get the best quality education in the world? So it is going to be there for sure, and it is going to take a much more major role in going forward.
Thank you. Next question is,
sorry, I had a comment about the MOOCs question.
Yeah, go ahead.
If that's fine. I think NPTEL deserves a mention here. It is the most impactful education project in India by many standards. And I think since we are talking about engineering and computer science education in India, no other initiative has that kind of impact. I've been involved with this right from 2012, and actually my team built the tech platform on which NPTEL runs today. But the important thing to note over here is that it's not the tech as such, but it is all the support systems that have been built around it. The IITs coming in and deciding what sort of structure and policies do we want in place, and the government stepping up and putting out things like gazette notifications, etc., which make it a real thing. That is what has made it successful. So when you're talking about massive, large-scale education impact, then backing it up with the right kind of policies and programs is very important. Otherwise, what would happen is either because of lack of incentive or lack of the right kind of on-ground support programs, it is difficult to have impact on a massive scale. So NPTEL allows colleges to set up local chapters. Entire classes are enrolled into these online courses. Faculty can monitor the progress of 200, 300 students at one time. The certification exam, which is actually run by TCS, is actually one of the big motivators, because if you pass the certification exam, you get a certificate from whichever IIT hosted the original course. The ministry recognizes it for faculty development and for university credits. And the ministry actually pays money for TAs to answer questions on these online courses, for faculty who are creating the courses. The ministry has funded studios in the institutions to make it work. And this whole ecosystem really has come together to make it a reality. And if I may say, that has led to the expanded central government program called Swayam, where they want to do this beyond engineering education. So it's effective, it works, but it needs support mechanisms. Otherwise, I think just because of necessity today, everybody is doing their own small private online course, the SPOC acronym that we used to talk about too. So I think both have a place, and no discussion on MOOCs in India can go by without mention of NPTEL.
Thank you. Yeah, they do deserve credit for it. Thanks, Ashwani. One question that Ravindra, Professor Keskar has asked, and I think Samir, you in the text box you have responded for panelists, but perhaps you should let the other participants also hear your views on it. So Ravindra's question is one of the casualty in CSIT industry's early offers with great packages for graduation. So that may deter people from going to masters, and that might affect in industry if they do go for masters and things like that. So what's your comment on this?
Uh, so I did post a comment on the panelists because I did not know how much time we would have for taking all the questions. But I think some part of it did get addressed about it when Raju spoke about that, especially in the US education, people do not look at the education continuously. They take a break, maybe they do a startup, do a world tour, sort of get themselves exposed before they really move on. I think my strong belief is that even the master's education should be done by students after getting some work experience, which really tells them which is their area of interest and where they want to go. I have seen so many people who have done their masters and then they found it, sure, I want to be in the same branch or the same this thing, but the area which I'm working on today is not where I did my masters. I did my masters in neural networks, and now today I find that neural networks does not interest me as much as some other branch in computer science. I want to get work on those areas. So I believe that we should really focus on ensuring that how the masters program actually really take people with WorkX, which will really change the outcome which the masters will students will give, and when they really go into research and give an outcome for the world to look at, it will be really relevant from that respect. Just doing theory and building theory on theory, you need the practical aspect of an industry exposure or a worldwide exposure to come in. So that's the sort of thoughts which I put there in my comments there.
Yeah. Thanks, Amir. A comment from Chitra, and I would like to get views from Anil on this one. I think it pertains to internship. So Chitra says, if the industry is naturally and objectively willing to look at the curriculum and advise on what the new topics and skills need to be taught in today's scenario, that would be a good collaboration with between industry and academia. However, hijacking students from the university sometimes in the third year with offers just as additional pair of hands for low stipend interns, it probably is counterproductive. So what's your comment on this one?
Yeah, I think we touched upon, I think Ashwani touched upon a little earlier to see how can we work together across industry and academia to figure out how can we push some of these things later in the cycle so that you have more freedom, you have less stress in the system. And I think there are opportunities for us to get there. And that might actually ease some of the challenges that you see today. But from an internship standpoint, I just want to share my view on it. I mean, if the industry looks at that as additional pair of hands to get some work done and do that cheaply, I think it's a fail. It's not going to deliver the right set of outcomes. But the way I look at internship is it is part of that education. It is part of that exploration from the student standpoint as to what is it that they want to do. What are the possibilities out there? I mean, getting a little bit of a insight into what happens in the industry. What are the possibilities? What is it that I might want to do, say 5 years down the line, or immediately getting out and so on and so forth. And I kind of look at that from an industry standpoint as this is an extended interview process. When I say interview, it's a mutual interview. It's getting to know each other. From an industry standpoint, I'm much better off if I have the people with the right interest levels, people who are motivated in what I do in my sphere to come in and contribute back when they come into the industry. And from that perspective, internship is the right place to figure out, is there mutual interest? It's I mean, is this something that's going to be interesting to them? And if you look at this as more of a mutual learning, mutual understanding, and exploration, I think that's the right way to look at it. If it's about just looking at them again as an extended pair of hands who come in at a cheaper level, it is not going to really work out well. So that's my view on the internship. And I mean, going back, I mean, I think we've spent sufficient time talking about what happens in the fourth year. I think we have to get to a point where we have to prep the students in the early phases of the graduate study to get to a point where they're not just singularly focused on the job. That's a fail in the long run. You can't just do it at the fourth year, right? I mean, once that happens, I mean, there's too much of stress, but it has to start from day zero. and and we have to be creative there as well. I mean, some of the schools are absolutely thinking ahead and say it's not important for you to be attending the classes. I mean, if you don't want to do that, don't do that. But then you'll have much more quality education happening in the classes where people come in with interest. But from a academic standpoint, you had to open it up for more broader opportunities. I would say many of the people, I mean, I'm just postulating here, but many of the students who were too focused on an outcome, which might be a job in the first few years, once they know that they have the job, now their curiosity will start popping up. I always wanted to do X. I'm going back to Raju's point. I always wanted to appreciate this part of the stuff. And this is my opportunity to not to be worried about the pressure of the job. And I get to do things that really interest me. And that might be the real education, in my opinion. So look at it from both angles, the need for industry and the academy to come together to see if we can push out some of those things, reduce some of the pressures, and whatever we do it in a way where we mutually benefit each other and think about the real education that enables the students for the next several decades to come, not just the next 2 years.
Thank you. Perhaps a last question. This is addressed to Hemanth. Is there a difference between future ready and job ready? The latter is probably easier to define, job ready on day one. And it's obviously attractive in short term, but perhaps detrimental in the long term. So what are your thoughts, Hemanth, on this one about making things future ready, making students future ready? And how can industry help?
Very interesting question. And to address this, let us understand what is being future ready. It's more about having the exploration. It's more about exploring what could be the future in whichever domain the student is doing his education, and trying to understand the technologies which will come up, trying to understand the way the things would happen, not just next year or 2 years after, but 5 years down the line, and try to prepare for those eventualities, because the things are going to change. And as text says that yes, preparing for job ready is the easiest thing to do because you know exactly what is to be done. But when we talk about being a future ready, we need to have a foresight and building that thought process in the students' mind, building or creating that environment in the education system to help students to explore such things is what it really means to be future ready. And the role the education system can play in this is giving such opportunities. When I interact with a few of the universities in India, they have adopted a model where in the second year, third year, they encourage students to spend at least 1 week, 2 week into the villages or trying to find out the areas where there are some challenges. Spend some time, understand what are the challenges the society is seeing, what are the challenges the university is facing, and come back, and then during next 2 to 3 years in the college, try to work upon those, how you would address, how you will bring your knowledge, know-how to address those kind of challenges. I think these are the very positive steps these universities or colleges are taking. And from the industry side also, giving those inputs to the students, giving those inputs to the institutes that look, 5 years down the line, we foresee these things are coming up, and then trying to provide their knowledge, their know-how, so that creates that chain of thought process, chain of exploration. And if industry can support by giving some is that look, this is doesn't exist today, but this is likely to come up. And this is a kind of a problem statement or exercise we have defined for you, and you work on it together. Industry, academia, and students can be future ready.
Thank you, Hemanth. I think there is a wonderful conversation going on chat. I see Anita Divakar wrote something, there are responses, and on NPTEL there are responses. So wonderful interaction there. Also, a hallmark of a good panel discussion is you get to hear views from panelists. You get to pick up as many questions as possible from the participants. I hope I was able to do that. Thank you very much to all the participants for all your questions. If we were not able to pick up certain questions, my apologies, because in the interest of time, in the interest of the next session, we would need to wrap up. So thanks to the audience, and obviously thanks to the panelists, the representatives from industry who anticipated some of the questions, obviously have their thoughts, and personally they're involved in collaborating with academia. So again, thank you very much. The host, Dabu madam, is there anything else that you would like to do? Any announcements before we wrap up?
Thank you. No,
Personally,
sir.
from me, thank you to everybody.
Thank you, sir. I thank Pranali Save, Hemanth Gadgil, Anil Nair, Ashwani Sharma, Raju Goteti, Samir Bendre, and special thanks to Hemanth Pandey, sir, for nicely coordinating this panel discussion. Now I request Professor Viraj Kumar.
Also special thanks to the organizers, by the way. Huh?
Thanks a lot, sir. Welcome.